Hey guys, welcome to Start My Biz podcast. So this episode we have Ariette, a wedding coordinator and planner that also helps with baked goods. On the show. All right, Ariette, welcome to the show.
Hi, David.
I have no idea how to start these things, so it's going to be awkward for the first few shows, and you get
That's
to be
okay.
the lucky awkward starts.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me more about the nature of your business. What is it that you do?
So I help couples in the GTA coordinate their weddings, and I have a business partner who has a background in baking pastry arts. So she helps with making their wedding cakes, and we also do custom dessert tables.
Okay, so you guys are doing two things. You're doing the wedding planning. Is that just like the generic term for it?
Yeah, so we call it wedding planning. Technically, we do planning and coordination. So planning is more so helping them create the timeline and source vendors, and these are for the couples that maybe need a more organized and hands-on vendor. But we also do coordination, which is what most of the people that we work with hire us for, which is when we oversee the rehearsal and show up on the day of to set up everything and make sure everything goes smoothly.
Okay, so you have the planning, the coordination, and you have the baked goods that will be catered to those weddings.
Yeah. And we
Okay.
kind of market ourselves as sort of two for one because
Mhm.
if my friend can do catering, sometimes they need a vendor to do coordination and they already have contact with us, so we can just do both, and vice versa.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense actually. So, what inspired you to get started in that space?
So when it comes to like actually event planning, I think I always really enjoyed it ever since I was younger. Like even back in high school when they needed help with like small school events, I enjoyed the logistical aspect of putting something together. I really like projects in general and being creative for that, even from school time. So like creating something from nothing. And events are interesting because there are a lot of creative aspects that go into it and working with a lot of different people and talent. And so when it comes to weddings specifically, I started to help um, friends and family members who were getting married, especially people in the church community who needed help on the day of or helped with decorations. And I found that I really liked it. So I sort of just got into it. Um, and then about 2 years ago, I got certified. So that's how I officially started.
Wait, certified to do like wedding coordination?
Yeah, so there was a weekend course, and they basically help you understand like the legal aspect of like starting your own business, but specifically a wedding business, how to work in the industry, how to talk to vendors, um, and things like that.
Okay, and is that like a
Yeah.
third-party certification program, or is there like an official license needed to do this type of stuff?
Um, well, it's there's a thing that I'm certified with, which is WPIC, which is Wedding Planners Institute of Canada, and they travel around Canada teaching courses. So I caught the one that was in Toronto last, no, 2 Septembers ago. Um, I don't know for sure if all planners need to have the certification, but sometimes your clients will ask because if you
Mhm.
have zero background in event coordination whatsoever, and then people will be like, what? But I mean, like, I'm sure that there are planners out there who have formal university or college degrees doing event management, so really depends.
Okay, that
But
makes sense.
just
Yeah,
something to help like look legitimate. You can't just say,
yeah,
oh, I want to do this for fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of situations where people hired someone who just wanted to try it out for the first time, and it did
Yeah.
not end well. I mean, some people aren't bridezillas, but they become them once they.
Yeah.
You get someone who's like not experienced or not. I don't want to say accredited, but they're not part of some sort of organization that has some sort of backing, support, training, and
Hmm.
development for the professional.
Yeah, so with the organization that I'm with, WPIC, we're all held to a standard of term in terms of pricing. So And in terms of industry pricing, we shouldn't be pricing, let's say, like $300 for day of coordination, because that's just creating unsustainable pricing for an industry where, like, this is, for some people, this is their full-time job. And it's sort of like if you were it's sort of like if you were in a different industry and you were a graphic designer and you wanted to charge $50, but other people are charging thousands of dollars for something custom. It just sort of demeans like the work of other designers out there. And so for weddings in general, there's an industry standard, and the certification makes sure that everyone who has it is charging standard pricing, as well as just providing training in different aspects of planning. So like floral design and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for yourself, when did you realize, you actually talked a little bit about this already, but when did you realize that you should actually start your own wedding coordination business?
It's actually sort of a funny story because I had been doing it sort of like for fun, or not specifically weddings, but I had been helping out for a couple years with my campus scholarships banquet. And our year-end banquet, it's not like super formal, but we do sort of set it up similar to a wedding in that, like, we create individual place cards for everyone, and like we take everyone's like dietary restrictions and like their menu preferences. So we would like do the catering, and we come up with a theme. And so a lot of the aspects of what happened with planning banquet felt a lot like you were planning your wedding reception. So sort of really enjoyed that process, and people were joking around with like, oh, you're really good at this, like you should do event coordination or like maybe weddings. And so
Which,
it started
by
off
the way,
you're
you're absolutely insane for liking planning this kind of stuff. Thank God for people like you, because I'd be a wreck without people who actually loved this kind of event management stuff.
Yeah, even back when I was in junior high too, whenever we had, those like programs like at church where they're like, invite your friends, and we need to actually plan something where people want to come out. And I was like, yeah, well, sign me up. I love planning.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you're saying
programs and that kind of thing is my jam.
Mm-hmm. And then you said people
also,
noticed that. Yeah, you said people noticed that this was a strength of yours, and then they encouraged you to continue.
Yeah, well, I always really liked creating something from nothing, like I said. I also had, like, my undergrad experience was in child and youth care, and that's not necessarily event planning per se, but we do a lot of program planning and implementation for like the youth that I would work with. So we would always plan what we would be doing with them, and in a sense, that's still a type of event. So just in general, I liked putting something together. And so, yeah, I think that I definitely had a knack for it, but I also like enjoyed it. And so when people were starting to say that, I started to think more. I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe there's something here.
Okay. And what was that like starting when you officially started and then you landed that first client and started doing this as a business and not as just a favor with friends? Like, what was that like?
Definitely really cool, because definitely had a lot of support from friends. When I first started, I think officially probably started when I graduated undergrad, so about 2-3 years ago. And I think we had our first big client in that same September that followed my graduation. So that was really cool. And this person was a friend of a friend. So technically, like, still through word of mouth, but it was really cool how, like, my direct network was able to be so supportive and refer me. And yeah, it was a really cool wedding, and we had a lot of positive feedback. That was the wedding that we catered, and people really enjoyed the things that we did.
Okay. Yeah. So the first big client, you also did not just the coordination, but either the catering as well, so the full service.
No, that wedding was just catering, but through just doing smaller catering gigs and that we got to know a lot of couples. And even though we weren't necessarily doing coordination for all of them, we still in some regards help them a little bit with logistical things if they needed it.
Okay. So how's that like on the back end, doing catering and doing, because both of them are logistical nightmares, first of all. So, like if it's, I don't know if any of the viewers, all 4 of you viewers, have tried doing some sort of event planning at this scale. It is completely nuts. Like everyone rips their hair out. Like it's just not my kind of job, like whatsoever. So food, always a logistical nightmare because someone drops a carton of eggs and then now you got 2 hours left and someone's going to go and pick stuff up. And then event catering, and then, the event coordination, things like, oh, someone got sick and now we need a whole area of the workflow like falling apart. So how on earth do you deal with these 2 chaotic nightmare things?
That's an interesting question. I guess for us, like the main thing is really just being prepared, because you say it's a big nightmare, but on the day of, we haven't actually had too many issues. And I think a big part of that is just knowing to expect that things could go wrong and just being prepared for them. So on the food aspect, we just try to be as communicative as possible. So ahead of time, we'll ask them specifically, how many guests do you have and how many will actually eat the desserts that we're making? Because the worst is probably when the couple either over orders and like they just have so much wasted food at the end, or like they just spend more money than they need to because they over ordered, or if they under order and then guests are complaining. So we try to gauge with the client, like how many people are actually going to eat. So it really depends on their population. If they have a lot more adults and maybe like older people, they might not gravitate towards the cakes and like the super sweet things as much, but they might like things like fruit. And then, so that's the first thing that we do. We make sure that we have the right portions of everything. And then we make sure that in terms of what we create, we label everything. We try to tell the client as well to do their own labels as well if they don't want us to provide it, just so if there's any people at the wedding who have dietary restrictions or they have allergies, they know exactly what's there. So like they don't have to guess, oh, is this strawberry or is it just tinted pink? So they already know. And then in terms of cleanup and setup, it hasn't been too big of an issue for us so far. Really just being there to maintain the food table, making sure that people are not like just grabbing and being unhygienic. But we haven't had too many issues with the catering side so far, which is a really good thing. And then in terms of the coordination side, what really helps is doing a venue walkthrough with the client ahead of time and then just doing the rehearsal so that everyone knows where they have to be, where they need to stand, the pace they need to walk. So things like cues, people know what they're supposed to do. And then on the actual day of, for instance, let's say guests try to arrive as the bride is walking down the aisle, we'll have one of my assistants who are sort of like blocking the door and be like, you can't come in until like she's fully down the aisle and photographers are done taking photos, because you don't want to end up in their photo.
Yeah.
And then things like we also have an emergency kit. So that has basically the things that you need in case you do need them. So like a first aid kit, we have Tylenol, like Tums in case someone is feeling faint or has a stomach ache on the day. And we do get that sometimes. Sometimes we have like, let's say, really nervous brides, or maybe there are children in the ceremony and they trip and fall and there's a bit of bleeding. So we always have Band-Aids. In case of rain, we always carry like clear umbrellas. And so stuff like that, just like we don't necessarily always use them, but just in case we have them. And it gives a peace of mind.
Okay, why clear umbrella specifically? Everything makes sense except for that. That's I'm sure there's a reason for that.
Yes. So in my time working with photographers, they always tell us that in case of rain and in case they do need to use the umbrella, any other type of umbrella that's fully opaque and has a color is going to cast like a dark shadow. So like as
Oh,
they're
yeah.
holding it, it's going to cast a shadow. Whereas a clear umbrella, because it's clear, the light will just go through it.
Okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
actually things that's why you're on this job and not me.
And
Like if I
then in
had to do.
terms of how it photographs, it also just looks very clean.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also has a very Pinteresty look to it as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Where something like a opaque black umbrella is more like funeral. And I don't know if you really want to associate that with a wedding.
Yeah, you went from wedding to funeral and got real dark.
Yeah. All right. So, if you had to restart this business all over again, or maybe not restart it, so not going back in time, but you have to start a new one from scratch, what would you do different?
Um, well, I mean, there's some things that we learned, I guess, like lessons from in terms of as we've gone along. So I would probably would want to use a software that would organize everything from the get-go, which is what we're currently using. We I think it's been about 3 months, but we started using like a client management system, which just makes the process so easy because um, people can just enter onto our website like, hey, I want to book you for this date and
Mhm.
I'm available for a initial meeting on this date. And all of this information funnels through like a software that says, hey, you have a new lead through your website. And then from there, you have all the information that they have filled out and you can follow up. But you can track your pipeline. So, like where you are in the process. So, like inquiry, follow up, meeting, proposal. And then you can accept payments through that system. You can also send them contracts. And it's all like digital. So, you don't need to be like, oh, let's meet up and I need to pass you a check, or let's meet up and I need to give you the paper contract.
Mhm.
Because everything is online, the clients can just do things from their computer or for them phones. Um, and that just makes everything a lot more like easier with
Mhm.
modern technology. And before it was a little bit like more, what's the word? It's sort of like
Mhm.
we just did everything manually, so it
Yeah.
took a longer time. And then our inbox was like a little bit. I don't want to say disorganized, but it's just more like because we were having inquiries from a lot of different people, and it wasn't quite streamlined. So I would definitely start with like some sort of system.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, what's this? Is this like a specifically a wedding industry design software, or is it a general
Um,
CRM?
no, not particularly. It's called Honeybook. So I
Okay.
think other freelancers um, should know about it as well because it's really awesome. Um, like I said, you can have your lead generation through your website. People just fill out their contact information and then you can funnel them through the project. And I'm pretty sure like any type of freelancer can use it.
Mhm.
Dubsado or Dubsado, I don't know how you pronounce it. That's another one that's similar to Honeybook. So depending on, I guess, a person's preference, they can check out both. But I definitely recommend those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you do now for lead generation?
I'm still using Honeybook.
Okay. So that
Yeah.
that would manage the software. So the lead will go on your website, they do their initial contact with you, and then that funnels it through the software. But how about like, is it still word of mouth, or do you do like
Oh,
advertisement, or yeah,
in terms of like getting clients,
yeah.
right? Oh, okay. So we utilize Facebook a lot. There are a lot of wedding Facebook groups out there that
Mhm.
sometimes people go on there and they're like, oh, I'm looking for a coordinator or I'm looking for a baker. And so my friend and I will hop onto the comments and we'll say something personable like, hey, congrats on your engagement and we're available for your date. If you'd like to chat, here's the contact information. And
Mhm.
sometimes they follow up and then we do our tasting and it goes from there. But we find that like hopping onto those groups and trying to be personable as we like pitch ourselves, it really
Yeah.
helps to sort of set yourself apart as not just someone trying to be salesy, but you're actually trying to make a connection. So as
Mhm.
opposed to be like, here's my pricing,
Mhm.
DM me. We try to say like, hey, congrats first, and like try to get to know them as people first.
Mhm.
And I think going that extra mile has really helped us connect with our clients, and we've only had really like good clients so far too, which is really
Okay.
nice because people often ask, "Oh, have you ever had any difficult clients or like bridezillas?" And thankfully, like everyone we've worked with have been like very friendly, down to earth, like really nice people that I would just generally get along with. Um, so yeah, it's been good. So Facebook has been really nice because it's very community based.
Mhm.
Um, we've done some online ads as well. I don't know. I know that people are looking at them because I look at the stats, but I don't know how many of those ads are actually converting to actual
Mhm.
leads.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So definitely people are clicking through them, but then you haven't tracked what converts over.
yeah. So I think Facebook would probably be our biggest one, and word of mouth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you just responding to people who are recently engaged in these groups, or do you like post content or other media?
Like in the Facebook groups,
Yeah.
we usually just respond to the people who are looking because we don't want to just go on and self promo, like just
Buy
unashamedly.
my stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes they allow you to do that, but I just don't want to do that too often. We'll occasionally go on there. I guess like on the day where they allow promos, sometimes they have like promo threads.
Mhm.
And so we'll post on those, but we don't want to just go on there randomly and self promo just in case like it comes off a little too like in your face about it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we do that and we post on our social media as well.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So if some of the viewers here want to get more information from you for what you do, how can they reach out?
How can they reach out to me?
Yeah.
So they can check out our website. Through our website, we have our contact form, and they can fill that out, or they can send us an email, and we'll try to get back to them as soon as possible.
Okay. I'll edit that in post production on here.
Yeah, and
So
you can like put the link on the screen or something like that. But yeah, we're specifically based in downtown Toronto. I mean, I personally live uptown, but my business partner and I we work together in downtown Toronto because it's sort of like we sort of feel like it's the heart of Toronto. And we get to work with a lot of really cool clients in the area. So
mhm.
yeah, that's where we're based.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show. And as we said before, all the information to reach out to you is on the screen right now. And tune in next time. That's all for this interview. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with the different interviews that we have with more business owners.